The Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, and Sudan, sits at the crossroads of history and crisis. This region is rich in culture and resilience, but it's often in the headlines for war, famine, and political chaos. Why? Because it's a tangled web of old wounds and new pressures, colonial borders, scarce resources, and shifting alliances. Its location is strategic, bordering the Red Sea, a vital artery for global trade. What happens here sends shockwaves far beyond Africa. Foreign powers from the Middle East to the West are deeply involved, sometimes helping, often complicating things. But behind the headlines are real people, families, and futures at stake. To understand the Horn's turmoil, we need to look at its roots, ancient rivalries, colonial legacies, and modern power struggles. Is there a way out of this cycle? Let's find out. The Horn of Africa's troubles are rooted in its deep history. Ancient kingdoms like Aksum shaped strong identities, but also rivalries. Colonial powers, Britain, France, Italy, drew borders that ignored ethnic realities, forcing enemies together and splitting communities apart. When independence came, new leaders inherited fractured states and often ruled with an iron fist, fueling cycles of rebellion and repression. The Cold War made things worse, as the US and USSR armed local factions, turning the region into a battleground for global influence. Proxy wars and dictatorships left a legacy of violence and mistrust. Today, borders and politics remain fragile, and military force is still seen as the answer to disputes. The past is never far away in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia and Eritrea's relationship is a tale of hope and heartbreak. Eritrea fought for independence from Ethiopia for 30 years, finally breaking away in 1993. Peace was short-lived. A border dispute erupted into war, killing thousands and freezing relations for decades. In 2018, a peace deal brought optimism and reunions, earning Ethiopia's Abiy Ahmed a Nobel Prize. But the alliance soured when both countries joined forces against Tigray rebels, unleashing a new wave of violence and suffering. Now, tensions are high again, and Ethiopia faces more internal conflicts in Amhara and Oromia. Ethiopia's landlocked status drives its desperate search for port access, fueling regional anxiety. Old wounds reopen easily, and the quest for stability remains elusive. The Ethiopia-Eritrea saga shows how quickly hope can unravel. The region's future depends on breaking this cycle. Somalia's struggle for unity is a story of resilience amid chaos. Decades of civil war and clan rivalries left the country fragmented, allowing extremist groups like Al-Shabaab to thrive. A fragile federal government, backed by African Union peacekeepers, is slowly regaining ground, but Al-Shabaab still controls much of the countryside. In the north, Somaliland declared independence and built its own stable government, though no one officially recognizes it. In 2024, Ethiopia struck a port deal with Somaliland, hinting at recognition, sparking outrage in Somalia and a regional diplomatic crisis. Egypt, Turkey, and the UAE are now involved, turning a local dispute into a geopolitical standoff. This distracts Somalia from its fight against extremism and deepens divisions. The Horn's stability hangs in the balance as local and foreign interests collide. Somalia's quest for unity is far from over. Sudan's civil war is a humanitarian disaster with regional consequences. Since 2023, two rival generals, Al-Burhan and Hemedti, have turned the country into a battlefield. Cities are bombed, millions are displaced, and Darfur faces renewed horrors. The collapse of basic services has left people without food, water, or medical care. Refugees are flooding into neighboring countries, straining already fragile states. International aid is blocked, and famine looms for millions. The world's attention is elsewhere, but Sudan's crisis threatens to destabilize the entire Horn. Weapons and fighters cross borders, fueling more chaos. Sudan borders 7 countries. Its collapse would send shockwaves across Africa. The stakes couldn't be higher. Behind every conflict in the Horn of Africa are millions of shattered lives. War forces families to flee, creating one of the world's largest refugee crises. Civilians face hunger as armies block aid and destroy crops. Starvation is used as a weapon. Children lose access to education and healthcare, their futures stolen by violence. Infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals, is reduced to rubble, crippling economies. Even in peaceful areas, food prices soar and basic services vanish. The region's best and brightest often leave, draining the talent needed for recovery. The human cost is measured not just in deaths, but in lost potential and broken generations. The cycle of poverty and violence deepens with every new conflict. The Horn's greatest tragedy is the suffering of its people. Despite the turmoil, hope remains for the Horn of Africa. The region's future depends on cooperation, not confrontation. No country can solve these problems alone. Youth make up over 60% of the population. They're connected, ambitious, and hungry for change. If their energy is harnessed for entrepreneurship and civic engagement, they could transform the region. Economic integration, shared infrastructure, trade, and resource management could turn rivals into partners. When economies are linked, peace becomes a shared interest. The choice is stark. Continue down the path of conflict, or embrace dialogue and cooperation. It will take courageous leadership and a new mindset. The Horn of Africa can break the cycle and unlock its vast potential. The world is watching. Will this be a story of endless crisis,